This is like my fifth take trying to record this. I guess I'm still getting used to this YouTube thing. But essentially, I wanted to talk about this Breath of the Wild thing, right? I mean, I guess when it was announced that we were going to get a Switch 2 edition for Breath of the Wild, for those of you who don't know, Switch 2 editions of games are essentially old Nintendo Switch games that have been upgraded to run better on the new system. So things like frame rate have been improved, resolution, just, general things like that. And, I mean, they're charging... What is it, like a $10 upgrade for people who already own them? And I think for people who don't own them, it's going to be like at least $70. Some of them are going to be $80, which is insane. I mean, we're talking about last-gen games at this point. And last-gen games, most of which have been out for a while, except for like Metroid Prime 4. And they want to charge even more for them? I mean, okay. But anyway, that's not really the topic of this video. I'm like, okay... whatever, I'm a Switch guy, so I have most of those games. So if I wanted to upgrade, which I probably didn't, I don't find much value in those sorts of things. Like, I've already played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. If I ever want to play it again, I don't feel like I should have to pay $10 to like do that, So I'd rather play it on my old system. But essentially, so I heard about this, right? And Breath of the Wild is going to be like $70 on the Switch 2. And I think, like everybody else, I sort of assumed that meant that the DLC for Breath of the Wild would be included. Now, for those of you who don't remember, it was a while ago. Breath of the Wild had some DLC, which was it was actually pretty good. I think it was sort of like a roguelite mode, where you like went down like a series of rooms, collecting weapons and upgrades and stuff like that. And the final upgrade was like a huge buff to the Master Sword, right? So it was pretty cool. And it also had like a new dungeon and like outfits and typical DLC stuff. But it was a good DLC, but it's a 7-year-old DLC for a 8-year-old game, right? And we're talking about an 8-year-old game, by the way, that I think people tend to remember Breath of the Wild as a Switch exclusive. Breath of the Wild was developed for the Wii U. Like, Breath of the Wild was developed 2 generations ago. Breath of the Wild is a game from the PS3 generation. Let that sink in. From the tail end of that generation, of course, but still, right? That's the hardware that it was developed for. So keep that in mind as we talk about what's going on. So essentially, Nintendo, they're already charging you more for an 8-year-old game, right? I mean, I think they should do what PlayStation did when the PS5 first came out and just give you a free upgrade. Right? But they're Nintendo, they're greedy, they're not going to do that. So, okay, a $10 upgrade for people who already own it, whatever, $70 for Breath of the Wild. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think $70 is... It's not that I don't think it's worth it. I think Breath of the Wild is a great game. I just think it's so shitty for a company, particularly with the way that, games work these days, to not lower their prices 8 years after release, right? And again, we're talking about a game from last gen. So already, if you wanted to play Breath of the Wild today on your standard Switch console, it would still be $60, which is insane, right? I mean, I looked recently at Doom Eternal on the Switch, mind you. And, I mean, when Doom Eternal released, it must have been like $60, right? Like most games. Now, you can look at it on the store, and it's like half that, I think, right? Like $30. And that's when it's not on discount, because it goes on like a discount so often, but Nintendo refuses to do that. So, okay, whatever, they're greedy, they want their money, that's fine. But at least, I thought, it would release with the DLC. I mean, it has to, right? We're talking about 7-year-old DLC for an 8-year-old game that came out 2 generations ago. But, no, Nintendo said, fuck that. If you want the DLC, you're going to have to pay an extra $20, which means, in total, if you want to play the full Breath of the Wild experience, again, a game that is, almost 9 years old, you will have to pay $90. $90 for this. It's insane. I guess I don't know... Like, I know what people are going to say, like, well, it's Nintendo, what did you expect? Particularly recently, right? Like, Mario Kart World is going to be $80. Why would you expect them to not charge you this much for this? And, God, I mean, I don't know. I just think is it wild to expect Nintendo to like throw us a bone? Just one bone? I mean, look at what PlayStation is doing, right? I mean, God of War Ragnarok, a fantastic game. I don't think a better game than Breath of the Wild, but still a great game. It had like a free update with like a whole new game mode, right? Like God of War Valhalla, which wasn't just like a standard roguelike. It was like an actually like very in-depth, very well-developed roguelike with like really cool like building, you know, for your character. Like really cool, and it had like different like you could like choose a different weapon at the beginning of every run, and it would affect how that would go, and it was filled with variety, right? It was great, and to add on to that, it also was like a nice little epilogue for the story of God of War Ragnarok, right? It wasn't just like a gameplay thing; it was like a full story where Kratos had to sort of come to terms with his demons. And it was entirely free. It just dropped one day. And it had like new enemies and new areas and tons of new cutscenes and dialogue. And we got to like actually truly meet Tyr, right? Like a character that was, well, I mean, spoilers for God of War Ragnarok. In the God of War Ragnarok campaign, you interact a lot with Tyr, but he turns out to be the bad guy, just sort of pretending to be Tyr. And then once you beat the game, you can find the real Tyr, but it's just like little interactions that you can find throughout the world. It's not like a side quest or anything. And here you get to fight him, to speak with him, to get to know him, and it was all free, right? Or even something that wasn't free. Like look at The Last of Us Part 2 remastered, was it? I don't know. Anyway, if you already owned The Last of Us Part 2, you have to pay $10 to upgrade. And you might be like, oh, well, that's essentially the same thing that Nintendo is doing. The difference is that The Last of Us Part 2, well, I don't think it ever had any DLC, but the $10 that it charged you actually added, right? You got like the actual The Last of Us Part 2 game, and you got like a whole new game mode called No Return, which is one of the coolest roguelike game modes I've ever had. And this is the sort of thing that this is, you know, I play a lot of Nintendo, but I play a lot of other stuff, and it just seems like Xbox and Sony are so much more willing to throw you a bone, even though by all metrics, particularly Xbox, they're not doing as well as Nintendo. So it just sucks, right? Like I think it says a lot about the way that Nintendo looks at consumers, right? I mean, they look at you as like money machines. They don't think about what is actually like good value for you. They just think we made this thing, and we're charging this for it, and we're never gonna lower it. And like, when does this end? Like, remember in the Wii U generation, when, I mean, this was back when Nintendo was struggling, right? So you can tell how their whole mindset changed. If you bought Mario Kart 8, because everybody was buying Mario Kart 8 for that console, you could also get a free game with that purchase. Like, Nintendo would never do that today. And I'm not saying they should. I'm saying it speaks to the way that they thought about their consumers back then and how they wanted us to look at them versus now. Now, they're, like, drunk on their power. I think this is something very similar to what happened with Disney and the MCU, right? They released a bunch of these movies that did super well and that were super successful and that everybody liked. So that when Endgame was over, they essentially thought, oh, we can do no wrong. Let's make double the amount of movies we're making now and also make television, right? And what happened, right? They spread themselves so thin because they thought that whatever had the Marvel name on it would make so much money that everything they put out was crap. They were so drunk on their own power that they didn't realize they were alienating like their main fan base. And I think that's what's happening here. Imagine telling somebody who is sort of considering, maybe I'll buy a Switch 2, you know, I've heard tons of good things about Nintendo games, but I don't know, it looks expensive and the games are expensive, and you tell them, well, you could always just play Switch 1 games that have been upgraded, right? And that won't be as expensive. It'll be, you know, still be $70, but, you know, it's not as bad as $80 or whatever. And then you also tell them that there are 8-year-old games that cost you $90 for the full experience. Why not just include the DLC? I'm literally trying to think of like remasters or remakes or whatever of like that of older games that came to newer consoles that didn't include everything that old game had. Right? Another The Last of Us example, when The Last of Us Part 1 re-released on PS4, right, because it first came out on PS3, the Left Behind DLC was included. And I think every single version of The Last of Us Part 1 that you can buy today has Left Behind included, and it doesn't charge you a single cent more for that. Matter of fact, if you pick up The Last of Us Part 1 today, you might find it for like $40 or less. So it's, God, I mean, what would it have cost them, right? We're already talking about a game that sold more than 30 million copies. Last I checked, it's probably more than that. The DLC must have sold insanely well too. Now, they're going to charge you even more for just the game, and they want to sell you the DLC again, right? Like, they're drunk on their own power. I really have no other way to explain it. It's just, why wouldn't they include it? There's no good reason not to. There's no good reason to charge anybody this much for something that came out so long ago. And you might say, well, the value of a game is not determined by its age, really, right? There are games from the 90s that are still fantastic, right? Like Ocarina of Time. I mean, it's essentially still a fantastic game. And if you were to charge $60 for it, it's not that it wouldn't be fair. It's just that there is such a thing as an industry standard, right? There is such a thing as like what a bottom line for consumers, right? Like the bare minimum, if you will. We expect these companies to do the bare minimum because they've been doing it for years, right? Like when nobody is paying $60 for 9-year-old games on Xbox or PlayStation. Matter of fact, most of those people aren't paying really anything for those because you get tons of free games with PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass. So for Nintendo to be like, no, you still have to pay the whole thing, and if you want the DLC, you have to pay even more. That's $90 plus a $450 console, and this is for a game that has already been out. God, I mean, I just keep getting more and more disappointed by Nintendo, is what I'm trying to say. There is not a day that goes by where I'm not thinking to myself, man, I used to love these guys, but now they're really like, Jesus. And another thing, right? I think this is, and I've heard this about the corporate culture over at like Nintendo of Japan, they just don't like giving stuff away for free, right? Like if they feel that they put work into something, they want to charge for it. Even if reasonably, if you look at the industry as a whole, it's not something that would usually be charged for by any other person working on the industry except for them. Like a good Reggie actually talked about this. He kind of threw shade at Nintendo, right? Like when they announced that the whole Switch 2 like pack-in game that isn't a pack-in game, that's gonna be like $10, I think, which is too much for that. I don't even need to play it. I already looked at it. $10 is too much. He talked about how it took him like so much convincing to let Nintendo just put Wii Sports like as an included part of the console, right? Of the original Wii. Nintendo wanted to charge for it separately. And you know what? Wii Sports is fantastic. I think that would have been fair somewhat. But no, Reggie was like, you don't get it. This is going to get people to buy the console. This is going to go viral. This is going to like blow up, right? And they trusted him and they were right. Wii Sports is one of the most successful games of all time, and the Wii is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, in large part due to Wii Sports. Like, if you think back on the Wii generation, almost no third-party games came to the Wii, because the Wii was so hard to develop for, right? Like, if its infrastructure was so wildly different to that of other consoles. Just look at, like, a Wii controller compared to, like, an Xbox 360 or a PS3 controller at the time. So the fact that was there for free sold the console so well, right? Like it helped the console so much. The commercials with grandma playing and the whole family together, right? Like that's what made the Wii the Wii. So, and now Reggie's gone and I guess nobody's there to stand up to these greedy fucks. It's insane. $90 for Breath of the Wild, for the full Breath of the Wild experience. $70 for Breath of the Wild is already too much. Let me just say that. $70 for this is already wild, right? Like there's a difference between having a game, making a game today and releasing it on the Nintendo Switch and on the Nintendo Switch 2, and then charging you 10 extra bucks if you want to upgrade. I still think that's sort of a shitty practice, but we're talking about games that are coming out right now, right? Like the latest thing. That makes sense. But Breath of the Wild, a literal day one release for the Switch, a launch title for that console, $70, $90 if you want the whole thing. No, you can miss me with that. And I've said this in other videos, but with your dollar, right? Don't let Nintendo get away with this. I think knowing the way that these sort of corporate structures work, Nintendo knows that people are unhappy about this. Nintendo saw the Nintendo Direct, not the Nintendo Direct, the Nintendo Treehouse Live with all the comments going, lower the price, lower the price, lower the price, lower the price. They know. But I still think that they are confident in their ability to sell at these prices. Show them that that's not gonna happen. I think as we should come together as gamers, as a community, as people who appreciate the medium of games, right? And who want to be treated fairly by the people who sell them, not the people who make them, mind you. That's different. The people who sell them. The devs at Nintendo are not setting prices. Those are executives and shareholders. These are not the people making the games, right? It's important to make that distinction. Show those people that no, we're not going to put up with it. We're not going to pay $90 for this experience. Don't buy the DLC. Don't buy Breath of the Wild at all on Switch 2, I think. Just play it on the normal Switch. Runs fine. There's this, I mean, yeah, it's 30 frames per second, but is that really such a huge thing? Like, I don't get why people care so much about that. Is that, like, it's playable. And yeah, it has some pop-in. And I guess if I'd only had to pay $10 and I was still regularly playing Breath of the Wild, but and it gave me like 60 FPS and like higher resolution, it might be worth it. But from the moment that you tell me that you also have to buy the DLC separately, you can get the fuck out of here, honestly. I swear, right? Like, nobody... well, anyway, I'm rambling at this point. I'm sorry. I'm mad. I just heard about this now, and it... God, I mean, I'm mad about it, okay? Anyway, that's it for me, at least for today. Check out my socials on the links down below. Check out my other channels. Those are also linked down in the description. And if you feel like it, you can support me on Patreon. You can get early videos from my main channel, as well as early reactions from my reaction channel, and other benefits that you can see there. You get to vote on video topics. You get to do a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, let's help build out this community, and you can do that through there. But anyway... yeah, thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And that's it. Marcy signing out.